this time, in this video, I'll be demonstrating a very old school method of training in martial arts. And for those of you who are new into martial arts, I strongly suggest to you not to do this kind of old method unless you are really under the care of a really certified and professional martial arts instructor who really knows what they're doing, especially if you're doing it in a martial arts school of some sort. And so if you're trying to do this while watching this video, I really strongly suggest to not do so. So if you want, you can just stay and watch on how it is done, but I really strongly suggest not to imitate or at least try anything that you watch from this. So unless you're under a good certified professional martial arts instructor, then you can't. Even for the intermediate. Now for the advanced, you may, if you have already some kind of history when it comes to doing old school methods of training in martial arts, you may follow me in doing this tutorial. Now, there are a lot of old school training techniques that martial arts has. It depends on what kind of martial arts discipline that you're practicing. Some disciplines focus more on doing kicks. Some disciplines focus more on doing punches. And mostly you see these kinds of old school training methods on hard styles like karate, Muay Thai, along those disciplines. But rarely do you see these kinds of old school training methods on soft styles like Tai Chi, for example. Tai Chi, because it's really soft, you're really fluid, whereas in karate it's really rigid, like so. So the old school training method that I'm going to show you today is a shoulder ram. Now, for most of you, when you think about the shoulder ram, you probably thought of doing a shoulder tackle when you're trying to open a door, for example, and it's locked, and you don't have keys, and for some reason it's an emergency situation, and so what you would normally do instinctively is to back up and then just run off, gain some kind of acceleration or momentum, and then do a shoulder ram from there. Shoulder ram is also common, or some would say shoulder tackle. It's also common when you watch really hard sports like rugby or American football, the NFL, for example. There you'll see a lot of players who are holding the rugby or American football, mostly a running back, I think. That's what you call it. Sorry about the positions if I messed up. But usually there's a person who holds the ball, catches the ball from the quarterback for the American football players, and they run. And if need be, you'll see some of the holders, ball defenders, should I say, tackle their opponent so that they would not tackle the guy who's holding the ball, so that the guy or the other team could score a touchdown. Sorry about that. And so that's mostly what people think when it comes to shoulder ram and shoulder tackle. However, most people don't think of a shoulder ram or a shoulder tackle as a sort of self-defense, and mainly because it's natural for us to use punches and kicks. Now it's also natural to transition those punches and kicks into elbows and knees. Sometimes clinching and then do knees and then pop elbows on close range, but never doing a shoulder tackle. So this video is going to be about that. Now, if you just want to go straight into the, should I say, the mechanics of doing shoulder tackle, you may want to stop this portion of this video and click the time right down on the description or the show notes. Now, since you've stayed even though I told you to skip the video for the body mechanics, that means you would want to hear about the pros and cons of doing the shoulder ramp technique for self-defense, or even just for old school training. Now I'm going to tell the cons first, because if I told you the pros, you would just go immediately and train them. So the cons for the shoulder ramp would be, first of all, you have to have a certain deep understanding of the body mechanics into it, and at the same time you should have a strong foundation when it comes to shoulder training. One of the reasons is to add more muscle to your shoulders. So you train your shoulders like training your shoulders in the gym and whatnot, doing push-ups, because push-ups not only work your chest and your triceps, the muscles here at the back of your arms, it also trains your shoulders because of the stability. So it also strengthens the tendons surrounding the shoulder joint, and it helps you strengthen the shoulder joint as well. So you really need to have a deep foundation when it comes to strengthening your shoulders, and also know the body mechanics into it. And another con for doing the shoulder ramp, or before you do the shoulder ramp, is that you have to also have a strong upper back. Now, and together with the neck muscles. I say that because when you, let me remove my towel first. I say that because in basic physics, as you all know, if you're going to hit a certain mass that's accelerating and you hit it square on, the tendency is for that standing mass, or that mass that is still, will also give the same amount of energy that, let's say, a projectile hits that still object. Say, for example, if a bullet from a gun is fired and goes straight into the wall and it hits the wall, the amount of energy that the bullet hits the wall is also given by the wall to the bullet. So that's one of the reasons why the bullet is squished instead of being a whole bullet. So yeah, that'll be the same thing. And I say that because once that mass hits that object, say now for the shoulder ramp, once you hit your shoulder into a wall, for example, the amount of energy that you give to the wall is also bouncing back to you. So it's not only you giving the energy to the wall, it just stays to the wall. Now what happens to that is, because the wall is also giving the same amount of energy you gave it by hitting the wall, the energy vibrates to your body, and surprisingly, your shoulder doesn't really receive most of that energy, which should leave you really sore. But what happens is some of your body parts will receive the impact, and especially if you don't train them well. And if you didn't train them well, they'll really feel sore. And if not sore, if you're not really careful, those muscles will really be painful. So that's one of the reasons why I told you to at least have training with your neck muscles and your upper back muscles. Well, basically your whole back. Mainly because the energy that you receive from the wall, for example, from doing a shoulder ramp, or from a door, when you do a shoulder ramp into it, vibrates into your lower back, upper back, and then your neck, and then the next day you're going to feel it. I felt it when I first did that shoulder ramp training, so it took a long while for me to recover. And so once you have experienced that, I strongly suggest to either stop the shoulder training for now, the shoulder ramp, and strengthen your upper and lower back as well as your neck muscles, and slowly build up training those before you do go back into shoulder ramp training. Now the third con of doing a shoulder ramp training is it's a really short distance technique. It's way shorter than a punch. So if I'm going to do a punch here, see, there's length. Depends on how long my arms are and how long my arm bones are. So if I add a step into it, it makes my distance longer, makes me reach more to my opponent. And if I torque my hip, or if I torque my whole body into the punch, then it gives me not only more distance, but it also gives me more power. So that'll be for the punch. Same with the kick. So if I do this, there's more reach. Whereas if you're going to do a shoulder round, compared into this kind of technique, punch for example, see where I just stopped? It's really, really short. It's way shorter than me just doing a punch right here. Because I just stopped from here. See, if I compare that to a punch right here, maybe I just move up until here, on the crease of my elbow, if I do a shoulder round. See? So that's one of the cons that makes the shoulder round really risky. Now, if you've misused the shoulder round to an assailant or an opponent and you missed, especially if you've miscalculated your distance and you did a shoulder round, chances are not only are you going to be still in recovery because you're in this position, or if you're running and you do a shoulder tackle, like so. Tendency is you might be clocked out, you might be counter-tackled by your assailant or opponent, and third is you're just going to go straight head on, because that'll be the fourth con of the shoulder round if you do it. It's just a linear attack. So unlike the punch, when you punch right here, even though if you miss the first, you can clock with the second, and even though if you miss the second, you can duck, you can do slips, you can move around with your feet. Whereas if you're going to do the shoulder round, you stop here, unless you're really agile and you really train your legs pretty hard or pretty intensely for you to move around after the shoulder round. You're really going to be vulnerable in doing it. So that's the fourth con. Now, for the pros. I know there are a whole lot of cons, but it's going to make the video a whole longer. So those are the main cons that I chose to bring it up. And some of the cons that you would want to know, I would suggest that you would just research about it. Either through reading, ebooks, or real books, solid books, you know, the real ones that you get from the library, and searching the internet as well. So those would be the cons. Now the pros of doing the shoulder round are just as equal, if not a little bit higher, or a little bit that has a little bit more benefit than reading and knowing the cons of doing the shoulder round. So first off, the shoulder round, even though it's a really short distance technique, it's really linear, the pros about it is that it's really, really powerful. And it's one of the rare martial arts techniques where you can use a horse stance. So for those of you who are really into doing horse stances, and you're really searching for martial arts techniques that you would want to use using horse stance, shoulder round is one of those good martial arts techniques. Now the main reason why you would want to do a horse stance is that when you slip your foot, let's say for example there's an opponent in front of me. So my opponent is standing square back here. Now this will be just for a simulation. Realistically, your opponent might be like this, in a bladed position. Your opponent might be just square off like this, trying to push you around, and all that stuff. But once you see your opponent have a space in between their legs, that's the right time for you to do a horse stance and for you to automatically do a shoulder. Now, the reason being is why it's really effective when you use a horse stance in doing a shoulder round instead of doing a shoulder tackle when you're banging the door is because you can slip your foot in between, sink down, and then just let your body do the work. Once you have felt the momentum or a little bit of acceleration, then you can just slam your opponent. Now, the analogy that I would want to present, which makes it a whole lot easier for me to understand, is think about the cart that has a stack of books. It doesn't matter how many books there are in that cart. You know, the pulley cart that little boys or little girls, 3 to 5 years old, pull. So that would be the little red cart. Imagine that it has a stack of books, and if you push the cart enough, you'll see that the books are also accelerating with the cart. Now, if you're going to immediately pull the cart back to you, so you push the cart and then pull it back, chances are there are some books, either from the top or from the middle, that will go forward when you pull the cart back. So the books that go forward, either from the top or from the middle, will be your shoulder. And the cart that you push forward and then you pull back would be your legs. So that's the reason why you do a horse stance. Now, another pros on why you should do a shoulder run, aside from doing horse stance, is that it's also a very, very short distance technique. Now, I know that's one of the cons, but it's also pros, because chances are, if you're being clinched by a person, say for example, they clinch you right here, and you didn't bring the arm up here, then you make a distractionary technique, for example. What you would just do is just turn your lead leg, if it's really, really short in distance. You just turn your lead leg, sink down, and then just move forward for you to do a shoulder tap. So for a little demonstration right here, say I'm being clenched right here. See? Just like that. Once I turn my foot, I do a step. In order for me to have a horse stance right here, I sink. By the time I sink, I also simultaneously move forward a little bit so that my upper body would wave, just like the stack of books that I explained to you a while ago. So I let my body wave. Once I felt the weight shift of moving forward and sinking down at the same time, then just let my shoulder hit my same, and then hopefully my shin would let go, because mostly your target area, which is the fourth or third, your target area is the middle, which is the chest, mostly at the center line, because you're going to catch your opponent off guard by stepping in the middle of your opponent's space in between the legs. Now the fifth pro of doing a shoulder ramp is not only is it short distance, but it is also really powerful. Powerful meaning if you train it long enough, and if you train your shoulder ramp correctly, it'll really break some ribs, it'll really break the chest cavity of your opponent, or fracture it, and also it'll send your opponent flying. So if you have a whole lot of opponents around you, for example, one clinches on you, and say there are at least 4 or 5 guys, but you only just need to push one opponent away from you in order for you to escape. That opponent clinches you, take a step in between your legs, do a shoulder ramp while sinking to your horse stance, and then moving forward at the same time. So say you clinch around here, like so. Now, knowing about some of the cons and knowing about some of the pros. For additional cons and pros, you may need to want to research about the shoulder ramp further, especially on the body mechanics on doing it. But basically, your main foundation in doing the shoulder ramp is hardening your shoulder, toughening it up by doing shoulder training in the gym, whatnot, having a stronger upper and lower back, doing some push-ups, and strengthening your neck. So there are some YouTube videos that can help you with that. And also doing horse stance. Keep on thinking about shoulder. Horse stance. So if you're really good in doing the horse stance, even just for this deep, that's fine. You really don't have to really do this kind of deep horse stance because it makes you lose power. And so now that we've discussed the cons and pros, we'll now go to the body mechanics on how to do the shoulder ramp. Now, if you skip the pros and cons of doing the shoulder ramp and you just went straight into this part and doing the body mechanics so that you can immediately train on it, I strongly suggest that you would go back into watching the pros and cons later, but for now, I'm just going to go through the body mechanics of the shoulder. For those of you who have watched the pros and cons, and you already know about it, I'm doing the shoulder ram, so let's go straight into the body mechanics. Now, as I mentioned from the first part already, well, I kind of like brushed into it. You need to first have stronger shoulder, so you build your shoulder up muscularly, strengthen the tendons and the joint of it, alongside with the other body parts that are included in doing the shoulder ram, as well as strengthening your legs by doing a proper horse stance. So a proper horse stance would be, so I'll do it in this side first, showing the legs. Your proper horse stance would be, you may just want to have your feet wider than shoulder width, and then just try to sit down. Try to sit down without going forward or going back. So you're just going to go straight down, like so. Now if you're already doing the horse stance for quite a while, your horse stance might be really deep, so you may want to widen your stance, your legs, and then just go straight down. But it's not really a prerequisite to have a deep horse stance. As long as you can just sit down like so, and you feel that your knees are a bit heavy, and when you sink down, and you're not falling forward or back or side to side, you just sink down right here, that's fine. Preferably, your feet should be pointing forward. If your feet are pointing sideways, quite a bit, like 45 degrees, it really lessens the power of the shoulder. So you have to have your feet, if you want to feel the real benefit of doing a powerful shoulder ram, you have to have your feet set straight forward. So not 45 degrees, not going out, your feet should be forward. And your knees should be forward also. If you can't see that your feet are straight forward, just look at your knees. If your knees are going forward, then your horse stance is good. If you see that your knees are going out, then you might want to adjust and train for the horse stance with your feet or knees going forward and sink down. That'll be the horse stance on that view. On the side view though, you don't want to do this kind of position. You don't want to do this. It minimizes the power of the shoulder ram, and it doesn't train your legs really well, so you have to have your upper body straight but relaxed as possible. So you're not going to crunch down like this, you're not going to do this, you're not doing this type of motion when you're doing shoulder stretch or horse stance. Excuse me, since it's a shoulder ram video. So you have to have your body, upper body, as straight as possible but also relaxed. You're not going to stay stiff because they'll really hurt your joints. So legs a little bit wider than shoulder width, sink down, body straight, like so. See? So that'll be one of the prerequisites. Now, for the further body mechanics, if you have watched my dog walk video, it might be a little bit easier for you to understand on the mechanics of doing the shoulder ram. So we're going to do the shoulder ram first with a step. By a step, meaning we're just going to take a step, like walking. Now, once you're good in doing the horse stance in place, say for example you're already good at doing this, like so, and if your legs are already strong enough, you may want to do a step, like say you're walking, so you're just taking a step. But instead of just taking a normal step right here, you're going to move your entire body sideways. So you're going to go from here, then you're just going to automatically face to a certain direction. Say if I'm going to step with my right, I'm going to look on this side, on my left. So I'm going to turn here. So at first, if you're not comfortable in doing it with a horse stance yet, just take a step with either foot, so I'm using my right leg, and then just turn, like so. Same thing on the other side. my left, I turn here to my right. Other side, like so. Once you're comfortable doing that, it's time for you to now widen your step or widen your stride. So instead of just taking a normal step, so right here, so I do it side view, instead of just taking a normal step like this, and then face there, certain direction, like so, you may want to lengthen your stride. You're not going to do this thing. That'll be for very advanced. You're just going to widen your stride and then face here. You're not going to sink down yet. Because if you're going to do it abruptly, it might injure your knees. So we're going to take it really, really slow. Take a deeper stride and face. Notice that my feet are now wider than shoulder width. So that'll be step 2. Before, it's just step 1, shoulder width, like so. And also when you're taking a step, when you turn, make sure that your feet are already in line with each other. So your toes should be in a straight line. Because the tendency when you're taking a step is that one leg is at the back slightly and your other leg is a bit forward. So it's going to be like this. Closer. So your leg stance would be like this. And you don't want that. When you're going to do a shoulder ram, as much as possible, you would want to have both of your legs in a straight line, like this. So once again, normal stride, further stride, like so. Normal, further. Now why are we doing that? The reason why we're doing that kind of walk, taking a step, using the back leg, is because we're using a little bit of momentum, even just for a slightest bit, in order for our upper body to sway, just like the cart with a stack of books that I told you about. We don't need that much of a momentum. We don't need that much of a speed or acceleration, like doing a shoulder grab or shoulder tackle when tackling the door or playing football or rugby. We don't need that kind of much of energy. What we just need is a small amount of energy for budge the opponent, or if your opponent is really exerting much more energy to you, like really trying to clinch you and stuff, really push your opponent far away. So imagine that you're pushing your opponent far away using your shoulder, 20 or 50 feet. Yep, I know it's exaggerating, but if you're having that kind of mindset, chances are your opponent might be far away, 20 feet, stumbling down and rolling over. So that's one of the reasons why we're taking a step. Like so. Now once you're used to it, and you feel, notice that I didn't say see. At first you're going to see, so you're going to look that your feet are already in line with each other, they're in a straight line. Your feet are pointing forward in a certain direction. Once all of those are correct and you feel that your stance is correct, your legs are further than shoulder width apart, at least one step away, then you can sink down. But instead of just sinking straight down, you're going to sink down a little bit more to where your lead leg now is. So if I took a step with my left, having a wider stride, I turn, now having my body facing here, but my peripheral vision is still covering this area. So once I feel that, instead of just sinking straight down, so in training you could just sink straight down. Once you get this, you can just sink down. But once you get this part, and you feel that everything is already in correct fluid motion, instead of just sinking down, you're going to sink to where your lead leg is, to where your the leg that you used to step with is. So just doing that, I'm going to do this. So let's demonstrate here. Instead of just doing this, you follow where the weight shift is. See? Notice that I'm not over-leaning. I'm not over-committed. Imagine that your legs are a cart and your body, the upper body, are just a stack of books that when you stop the cart, it just goes forward. So you're leaning to where the recent weight shift is. I'm not doing this, that'll leave me vulnerable. I'm just doing this, leaning. Once I feel that weight shift here, then I can just let my body hit to say if you're training for the shoulder ram, a tree, that'll be too hard. With a cushion, that's better. Or a wall, with a pillow. And just be very cautious if you have neighbors around. So, yeah. So you're not going to overcommit. You just want to lean. Kind of like doing an elbow, like so. If you're already trained in taking a step and taking an elbow like that. But instead, you're just going to, if you're used to already doing this motion, what would help you is to now, instead of just doing that, if it makes you uncomfortable, is to punch right here. But as you punch right here, you're not going to punch straight down. You're not going to do this, because you're generating all of your energy, all of your power going straight down, punching. What you're going to do is to just let your arm do this motion. Like so. So that's one way, aside from just feeling that weight shift, lean. So, yeah. Notice that when I do so, the shoulder ram, that my hand is right here. You can have both of your hands this way, or this way, but I prefer having it this way, mainly because I just want to feel that push. So I'm kind of like feeling this kind of push right here. And I'm doing the shoulder. Like so. One common mistake that you would normally realize when you're training for the shoulder ram is you're going to have the tendency to look where your shoulder is hitting. And I strongly suggest not to, mainly because when your shoulder already hits a certain object, and as I said from the cons, if you haven't watched the cons yet, I strongly suggest you go back to it. Basically, from what I said from the cons is that the object that receives your shoulder ram will also give the same amount of energy to you. And your shoulder will not feel it, but the energy will vibrate to your body. And most of the time, your neck muscles and your back muscles will feel the soreness because the energy stops on there. The impact of the energy vibrates to your shoulder and it stops either on the neck or here on the upper or lower back. So, yeah, you don't want to turn your head because that'll add additional stress to your neck. So you'd want to actually face here, but have your peripheral vision cover this area. Like so. Now, once you've done training that, especially in slow motion, you would want to now combine, this is the hardest part of doing the shoulder. You would want now to combine the sinking down and the momentum going forward at the same time. So instead of just doing this, or this, notice that when I step my foot here, I'm still moving forward, and then right after that, in a split second, I lean. You have to do it faster. You have to do it almost as if that you're doing both sinking down and moving forward at the same time. So, like so. Once you feel that you're about to step on the floor, automatically you're going to sink down. So instead of just having your foot step on the floor first and then sink down, you're going to automatically sink down already. So notice that my knee on my base leg is already bent. So instead of just doing this and then bend, notice my base leg. It's already bent by the time I'm about to step. That way, it'll be easier for me to not only sink down, but also move forward. Because if I sink down once I step on the floor with my walking leg, the leg that I use to take a step, it'll take too much time for me to move forward now that I need to feel the weight shift on the other leg. So instead of just doing this, it'll be this. See, there's a huge difference. So instead of doing this, it'll be this. I hope you saw that because that's too hard for me to do a really slow motion in real time. By real time, I'm actually doing it in slow motion, not editing it and putting it in slow motion. Sorry about that, clearing my throat. And so, once you've done it, remember that to let your upper body sway. Just like the books, the stack of books on the cart, your cart will be the legs that you push and pull. So when you push, that'll be your walking leg. And you pull, that's actually letting you sink down. So the sinking down already makes you stable, so it's pulling you away from automatically just moving forward with your whole body weight. So instead of just doing this, we're actually doing this. So you're stopping. And the stack of books would be your upper body. So you let your body sway. You're not going to overcommit, as I told you a while ago, because if you overcommit, that's a tendency. You're going to lean forward more than you should. Never turn your neck, never face to the thing or your assailant that you're hitting with your shoulder round. Just look straight ahead, stretches your neck a whole lot if you do so. Turning your head like that. So just like that. Like so. Now, once you do that in slow motion, letting your upper body feel the sway. When I say sway, you're not actually going to start from here and do that. You're actually going to just stay here. Because once you do this motion, say you're just taking a step, or even if you're not sinking down, once you take a step and then look on this direction, you're going to feel your body sway to that certain direction, say to my left. See? Watch my arms. Again. Like so. So just let your upper body sway to the certain direction that your shoulder rounding with. Once you feel that your body is swaying, then that's the time you're going to add a little nudge. So if you're not used to doing certain nudges, say small muscular explosions, I would call them. Small muscular explosions would be like this motion, where in one of my videos I said this is one part of doing the back fist that I prefer. Like so. If you're not used to that, it's fine. Just going to let your body do it. But if you know how to do that, small muscular explosions, like so, I don't know the scientific name for it, so I'm sorry about that. But I just call it like that so that it would be easier for you to understand, hopefully. So if you have that, you have a small advantage because not only are you just relying on sinking down and the momentum going forward at the same time, which is already devastating. You're also adding additional impact or additional oomph, if you will, for you to explode to your opponent. So instead of just doing this, you're actually doing, see the difference? So instead of just sinking down, instead of just combining sinking down and having the momentum going forward, like so, you do that small muscular explosion. See, I'm not using my elbow, I'm still using my shoulder. Without, with. So, there you have it. I know that this video is quite long when it comes to the shoulder round, but I just want to cover as much ground as possible when training this, because I know that when others want to try to do this stuff, there's a huge risk of injury. And when I say there's a huge risk of injury, the shoulder is one of the most sensitive joints of the human body. If you dislocate your shoulder, it's fine, but if you really rupture the joints of your shoulder, there's a tendency that you might not use your entire arm for the rest of your life. So be really careful when you're training the joints of the body. Even though you're just using elbows and knees, they're still joints. If you overtrain them, if you overhit them with a whole lot of hard things, I know that some people would still do that. But if you're not used to that, so that'll be the majority of us, chances are you're going to really bust your joints, and by the time you reach minimum of 40 years old, chances are you're going to have a whole lot of arthritis and rheuma, and you're going to take a whole lot of medications and pills for maintenance of the joints, and you don't want that. As a martial artist myself, and as an athlete, since I firmly believe that martial artists are athletes, I want to constantly be moving. I want to move as long as I can. Even though I'm already old, even though I'm already 60, I still want to move my joints as normal as I can without any kind of medications or certain help. So I want to still move my joints. I want to still be able to play with my grandchildren, my children, and do a lot of things that most people with arthritis or rheuma can't do, which is really sad. So when training the joints of the body, please be very cautious. And again, I already said this morning at the beginning of the video, I'm going to say it again because of the importance of it. Do not train this kind of old school method without the consent of a certified professional martial arts instructor. Do not do it alone. Do it under that certified professional instructor in a school. Ask for that instructor's help and do it really slow at first. This is, even though this video is long, it's just a brush through. So yeah, there you have it. And I hope that this old school shoulder training method, the way I understood it, helped you even in the smallest way possible. So again, God bless you all. Always train safe and take care. And before I end this video, if you have noticed my shirt, Marines, this is not an official Marine shirt. I just bought it from a clothing store, and I bought it for the purpose of really having a huge respect for Marines, but also for